Friends, welcome you all on the behalf of Rahul Anand Biology Tutorials. So as you know that I am Rahul Anand and this is somewhat around my channel whose name is actually the Rahul Anand Biology Tutorials. As well as you are very clear about that, means today we are going to study about what? So today we are going to study means what are actually the molecular bio here means in terms of the molecular basis of inheritance. So these are the particular name of the topic as well as here in terms of the chapter. After that when we are dealing about these means what are actually the topic variants. So today we are going to study about these means in terms of what? In terms what are actually the genetic code. So genetic code are what? So the genetic code are the phase of the mRNA or DNA which is playing important role to determine what? Which is playing an important role to determine the sequence of the amino acid, and particularly after that what will be happening? So it is often playing important role to determine the here in terms of the sequence of the protein. Now, so when we are talking about these cases in terms of the DNA, so you are very clear about that, remember? So the genetic material are the DNA, means the deoxyribonucleic acid, as well as we are having the RNA, means the ribonucleic acid. So the RNA is not the genetic material, but when we are talking in the case of the certain of the viruses, so it will be considered under what cases? So it will be considered under the case of the genetic material such as the retroviruses as well as the reoviruses. Now, so often when we are talking about the case means what are actually the amino acids. So amino acids are what? So the amino acids are the micro molecules or the particles with reference to the protein. Remember? As well as when we are talking about the protein, so protein will be what? So when many of the amino acids will literally combine, it result in the formation of what? So when many of the amino acids will literally combine, it result in the formation of the protein. Now, so when we are talking about these cases about the protein, so it is oftenly being further divided in terms of the broad categories, such as we are in the fibrous protein, then the globular protein. So we'll be understanding about that later. Now, so when we are talking about these courses in terms of what? In terms of the genetic code. So primarily in this case it will be initiated with reference to what? So it will be initiated with reference to the DNA. After that in terms of the RNA, then in terms of what? Then in terms of the mRNA, and finally in terms of what? And finally in terms of the protein synthesis mechanism will be employed in this case of the genetic code. As well as when we are talking about these cases, means what does these mean in terms of the genetic sequence playing an important role. So these genetic sequence are playing important role in order for what? In order for determining the phase with reference to what? With reference in the case of here in terms of the mRNA sequence, then in terms of what? Then it is often playing important role with reference in the case of the nitrogenous bases. After that what will be happening? So after that in terms of the protein synthesis molecule as well as the mechanism will be literally employed as well as taking place. As well as when we are talking about these cases, means what are actually the genetic code. So in this case particularly we are having the two important as well as the vital process. So these are literally known as what? So these are known as the transcription as well as here in terms of the replication. Now, so when we are talking about these cases, means what are actually the transcription as well as here, tell me in terms of the here in terms of the replication. So in the case of the replication what will be happening? So in the case of the replication, the DNA will be copied with reference in the case of the DNA in terms of the deoxyribonucleic acid only. But when we are talking about the case in terms of the transcription, so in this case what will be happening? So in this case, tell me here in terms of the what? Tell me in terms of the DNA, means the deoxyribonucleic acid will be converted as well as from the DNA. So from DNA the mRNA will be literally formed. So these are literally coming under what case? So these are literally coming under the case of here in terms of the transcription. As well as when we are talking about these cases, means in terms of what? As well as when we are talking about these cases in terms of the transcription as well as the translation. So these are literally showing the many types of the here in terms of the complexities as well as the similarities as well as the various kinds of the variants in it. As well as when we are talking about the another cases in terms of what? As well as when we are talking about the another cases in terms of these, tell me in order means what are actually the mRNA as well as these in order in terms of the RNA. So in this case what will be happening, or either you could say that in the case of here in terms of the genetic code process. So what will be happening? One nucleic acid will be what done? So one nucleic acid will be copied in another in terms of the another nucleic acid. So this is the process somewhat coming under the case of the genetic code. After that, when we are talking about the another features, so we are having the different types of the vital stages in it, such as we are having what? Such as we are having the single codon model, as well as the double codon model, as well as the triplet codon model. As well as when we are talking about these cases in terms of the genetic code process, so primarily it will be initiated with reference to what? So primarily it will be initiated with reference to the deoxyribonucleic acid. Then what? Then in terms of the mRNA. Then after that we are having the four vital codes in terms when we are talking about the case of what? In terms of the nitrogenous bases, which are literally coming under what case? Which are literally coming under your here in terms of the RNA case. So yeah, so these are what? So these are the adenine, then the uracil, then the here main term the guanine, then what, the main term of the cytosine. Of course, after that, when we are talking about the different codes as well as the basic here main term of the defect of these main term of the code, and when we are talking about these cases, mean in order in term of what, mean in order how these particularly genetic sequence process literally work. So primarily it will be initiated with reference to your deoxyribose nucleic acid. After that, what will be happening? So after that, the mRNA will be formed, and from this mRNA we understand that we are having the 4 different types of the nitrogenous bases. So these are what? So these are the adenine, then the uracil, then what? Then the cytosine, often the guanine. Of course, such as in terms of the AUCG, of course. As well as when we are talking about these cases, so these are what? So these will literally combine in order to form the specific type of the protein. As well as when we are talking about the case of the protein, so we are having around how much? So here we are having around 20 different types of the amino acid in terms of the protein. Just like we are having what? Just like in the case of the English alphabet letters, we are having what? So we are having the 26 of the alphabets letter, etc. When we are talking about these cases, tell me in terms of here we talk the 20 different amino acids. So these are what? So these are nothing else but the adenine, guanine, cytosine, uracil. Often we'll be having the valine as well as the glutamate, etc. Glutamate, etc. So we'll be understanding about these cases later. Now, so we are talking about the basic defect as well as the problem of these in order of the genetic code. So your basic problem as well as these in order in terms of the genetic code is what? So the basic problem as well as the defect of the genetic code is to find what? So your basic problem as well as the defect is in order in terms to find the nucleotide codon in terms of what? In terms of the nucleotide codon. So when we are talking about these cases, means what are actually the basic problem as well as the defect of genetic code will be what? So your basic problem and the defect of the genetic code will be this in order to find the here mate of the specific type of the nucleotide codon. Of course, as well as when we are talking about these cases, means what are actually the different types as well as the parts. Tell me in terms of the codon rule. So we are having the singlet codon rule there. Then in terms of the doublet codon rule as well as the triplet codon rule. So when we are talking about these cases, means what are actually the singlet codon rule. So it literally tells that what? So here main term the one codon will code what? So here one codon will literally code in terms of the one nitrogenous basis. Okay, fine. So when we are talking about these cases in terms of the singlet codon formula, as well as when we are talking about these cases in terms of the rule of the singlet codon. So it tells what? So it tells that what? So it tells that one codon will code one of the nitrogenous basis. As well as when we are talking about the formula, so these are bearing the formula of 4 to the power n. Literally, when we are talking about these cases, mean in terms of what? Mean in order in terms of 4 to the power n or either the 1. So it literally means what? So 4 into 1 is equal to only the 4. Mean of the 4 codon. So here we have just understood one codon will code for how much of the nitrogenous basis. So here mean of the one codon will literally code for one nitrogenous basis. Likewise, the 4 codon will code for 4 nitrogenous bases. Now, and when we are talking about these cases in order of the rules of the singlet codon, remember, so it literally tells that because of the singlet codon we are having what? So and when we are talking about the rules of the singlet codon, so your here main of the singlet codon tells what? So your particularly singlet codons tells that we are having actually how much of the codons? So we are having actually around 4 of the codons. As well as here when we are talking about the 4 codons, so literally it is very clear that the 4 codons will code for the 4 here made of the amino acid or either the 4 nitrogenous bases. Now when we are talking about these cases, so okay, so here in term of the 4 codon will literally code how much of the here in terms of the nitrogenous bases. So it will be around 4 of the nitrogenous bases. As well as when we are talking about these cases, so these codons are quite bit what? So these codons or either the codons are quite bit specific in nature. So you could often popularly find it on the board here. So these are quite bit specific in nature. As well as when we are talking about these cases, means if these particularly codons in terms of the 4 codons will code the 4 of the here made of the nitrogenous bases, of course, but the rest of the here made of the 16 codons or either who will code the rest of the 16 codons. Why? Because overall we have just understood that total amount of the here made of the amino acid with reference to the what? In terms of the case of the protein we are having around how much? So these are around here made of the 20 different amino acid are literally being present with reference in the case of the protein. As well as in this case what will be happening? So in this case, okay, so 4 amino acid will code for the 4 codon, but rest we are having the 16 codon. So we will literally code for the rest of the 16 codon. So this was or either this answer was not particularly termed or either given by the singlet codon. Thus by this default or either the defect, the rule of the singlet codon was literally misguided or miscarried. Why? Because it could not explain that who will particularly code what. So we will particularly code the rest of the 16 codon. After that, when we proceed, so we are having the doublet codon. Remember? So when we are talking about the doublet codon, so very clearly understanding. So in this case, what will be happening? So in this case, we are having the formula of what? So in this case, we have the formula of 4 to the power n, where the value of the n will be 2 in nature. So when we are talking about these cases in terms of the 4 to the power n, where the value of the n is 2. Thus, it will literally here meant of the multiply, then in order to form the 16 of the codon. Now, so this was also misguided as well as discarded. Why? Because the total amount of the amino acid is actually here meant of what? In terms of the 20. But when we are talking about these cases in terms of the 16 codon, so it is quite a bit less than 20. Thus, this rule was often being misguided. As well as in this case, we will be founding as well as making the checker box like structure. In this case, often we will be having the parental combination as well as the here meant of the parents. Parental generation, which will literally play an important role to form the offspring, just like we are having in the case of the checkerboard, then in the Punnett square. So find here on the board, such as in this case we will be having the AU here. Find. So here is the AU, then the CG. So it will literally combine in order to form the here in term of what? In order in term of the 64 of the different codon. So when we are talking about the doublet codon rule, so it will be often misguided. Why? Because in this case here the 16 codon will be formed, which is quite a bit less than 20 codons. Now, after that when we proceed, so we are having what? So after that we are having the triplet codon. So here when we are particularly studying about the triplet codon, so we are having the certain of the here meant of the names of the scientists, such as what? Such as we are having the George Gamow. So George and when we are talking about the rules of the triplet codon, remember? So we are having the names of the certain scientists, such as what? Such as here in term of the George Gamow. So he played an important role as well as coined the term what? So here meant of the George Gamow played an important role to coin the term in term of the triplet codon. Often when we are talking about these cases in terms of the triplet codon, so in this case what will be happening? So in this case we will be having the here main term of more than 20 codons. This in which what will be happening? So in this case we will be having the around 64 of the codon. So it will be playing important role for what? Which will be playing important role to code the 64 of the nitrogenous bases, or either you could say that this particularly 64 codons will be specific in nature, as well as these are having the 64 options like structure. As well as when we are talking about the another cases, as well as when we are particularly applying the certain rules or rather the formula in terms of what? In terms of the triplet codon. So 4 to the power n, where the value of the n will be how much? Where the value of the n will be quite a bit cube or either the 3 nature. Result in which what will be happening? 4 into 4, 10 into 4 is equal to how much? So it will be around 64 codons in nature. So 64 codons means what? So it literally means more than 20 codon. As well as when we are talking about the 64 codons, so it means that we are having the 64 different types of the options. So after that we are often having the certain names of the scientists, such as what? Such as the Noenbergs. Then what? So we are having the Noenbergs, then the Khurana played an important role for what? For particularly verifying the rule of the triplet codon. As well as when we are talking about these cases, in terms of what? In terms of the triplet codon. So in this case, what will be happening? So in this case, we will be having around, tell me, here, in terms of the more than 20 codons. Result in which what will be happening? Result in which we will be having around 64 of the codons, which will be specific in nature, as well as having the unique potential to code what? Which is having the unique potential to code the 64 of the codons. Or either it is having what? So it is having the 64 vital types of the options. Thus, the 64 codons is having the unique potential to code how much? So, your 64 codons is having the unique potential to code the here meant of the 64 of the amino acid. But when we are talking about these cases, in this case of the 64 codon, only the 61 codons will be literally coded. Or either you could say that these 64 codons will be playing important role to code around how much? So, it will be playing important role to code around 61 of the amino acid. Remember, just we have understood means what are actually the amino acid. So what are amino acids? So amino acid are the micromolecules of the protein. As well as the rest of the 3 of the proteins will be left with us. So these are literally known as what? So these are known as the stop codon. Often these are known as what? So often these are known as the terminating codon. So you could often find it on the board, such as here we are having the stop codon. Find here. So here is the stop codon. Often known as what? So it is known as the terminating codon, as well as often these are known as what? So these are often popularly known as the here meant of the stop codons, literally. As well as thus when we are talking about these cases, means what are actually these? In terms of what? In order in terms of the stop codons, which are popularly known as what? Which is popularly known as the terminating codon. Often what? Often the nonsense codon. So these are the ocar. Then what? Then the umber. Then what? So these are the ocar, then the umber, then the opal. Now, so let's understand about these. So in the case of the ocar, so it will be what? So it will be the UAE. Remember, after that will be when we are talking about the case of the umber, so it will be the UAG. As well as when we are talking about the case of the here made of the we have dealt about the ocar, umber, then the opal. So it will be nothing else but the UGA. As well as when we are talking about these cases, means what are actually the here made of the UAA as well as the UAG or either the UGA. So these are nothing else but the specific type of the amino acid of your protein. As well as we have just about understood about these, means what are actually U standing for. So this will be what? So this will be nothing else but the uracil cases. So we'll be understanding about that later. So this is somewhat a condition when we are talking about the case of the here, means what are actually the genetic code. Of course, as well as in this we have understood about the particular of the certain types of the definitions, means what are actually taking place as well as occurring in the case of the genetic code. Often we have did the brief introduction, means what are actually the transcription, as well as here in terms of the translation. As well as when we are talking about the case of the translation, in this case what will be happening? In this case the DNA will be copied with reference or into the DNA, or either from the DNA will be only formed. As well as when we are talking about the case of the transcription, so in this case what will be happening? So in this case from the DNA the mRNA will be formed. As well as when we are talking about these cases, means what are actually the mRNA. So these are popularly known as what? So these are popularly known as the messenger RNA. Often we have did about the bit introduction, means primarily the steps will be initiated in terms of the what process. So it will be initiated from the DNA, then after that the mRNA will be formed. Then from this mRNA we are having the vital types of the here meta of the amino acid, or either you could say that the here meta of the micromolecules of your protein only. So these are nothing else but the AUGC. Of course, so you are very clear about this, means what are these actually standing for. So the adenine, then the uracil, then the guanine, often the cytosine. As well as we have often understood about what are actually the defect of these genetic code, or either the major problem of this genetic code. Often we have dealt about the bit introduction, means what are actually the primary codon, or what here in terms what are actually the primary codon as well as the secondary codon, or either the triplet codon. As well as we have often dealt about the bit introduction, means what are actually the molecular basis of inheritance. So you could often write these. So if you like the work with reference to the education as well as the lectures as well as the videos, so you could often subscribe as well as like as well as support my lectures with reference to what, as well as comment below in the text with reference to what, with reference to the Rahul Anand biology tutorials. So please like, subscribe as well as share my lecture. So very thank you.